Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sports for All. And tonight we have with us the basketball skills trainer from Statham Academy, Taylor Statham. Taylor, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And with me is the Godfather, Brian Yalung.
Yes,
Brian,
yes. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode. I'm looking forward to talking with Taylor.
all right, let's get right to it. Taylor, I want to ask you. You applied for the PBA draft. What happened there?
So just because of COVID and everything, it was hard to leave here and fly into Manila. And then not to mention the 2-week quarantine and just kind of everything. So it was just hard to meet my requirements as far as gaining my, dual citizenship, recognition, just all the paperwork needed for the PBA draft.
And are you going to give it another shot next year?
We'll just kind of see how it plays out. Right now, I'm just rehabbing a broken heel. So after the PBA draft didn't work out for me, I had a few offers to play Japan, Canada, quite a few places. I just actually got back from the USA 3x3 Nationals. So I played through my injury just because it was an opportunity to get in the Olympic pool. And, I played really well. My team played really well. And we put ourselves in a good position in front of the USA's Olympic Committee. So right now, for me, it's just kind of a waiting game to see, how my foot heals and then just kind of go from there.
All right, Brian, all yours.
All right. I want to ask Taylor. I know you made quite an impression here in the Philippines, especially in the 3-on-3 world. And I guess you've been hearing that there are a lot of Filipinos here being recruited in international leagues, like the Japan basketball league. Would that be an option for you?
Yeah, so I was actually going to take an offer to play in Japan. But, once I found out my heel was broken, they put me in a boot for 6 weeks. And then by the time it was getting close to the USA Nationals, I got out of the boot. They said it was still fractured. So I just kind of played through it. But I think it's a great league. Japan is just really well ran. And, I'd love to play in a country like that for sure.
Okay. So, is it okay to ask what team that was? Is it okay?
Yeah. So I was talking to a couple of different teams, Tokyo Dime. Shoot, I forgot the other ones, but yeah.
So what's your take on that? I mean, I'm just gonna cite an example here in the Philippines. For example, you made it to the PBA and you got that offer. They're standing in the way. Would that be a problem for you?
You're saying hypothetically,
Yeah.
if I was in the PBA?
Yes, yes.
Oh man, that's tough. Shoot. I mean, honestly, I can't even like where I'm at right now. I'm so busy with the academy, and I've been coaching 12, 14 hours a day, and then consulting for teams overseas right now. So I can't even see past the business part right now. I'm just looking forward to getting back in rehab, and hopefully I have options like that. Once I bounce back. But that sounds like a good problem to have.
All right. Back to you, Vince.
All right, Taylor. You've been around the NCAA for a long time. Recently, there was a Supreme Court ruling about student athletes being given more access to more benefits. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's great for the athletes. I just think, it's going to be very hard to control it. You know, you kind of open Pandora's box, and it's like, where do you draw the line? And, you know, how do you even know how much players are really getting paid? Because there's just so many ways to pay players or their families and get the money to them. So I feel like they're going to have a lot of problems. But, you know, from a coaching standpoint, I've been preparing a lot of my players who play in college, you know, just preparing them how to market themselves, you know, how to reach out to companies. If companies reach out to them, how, you know, just different options that they can give them. So, you know, they're more prepared for when that comes, and they can really maximize and get the most out of it. Especially like, you know, some of my players who are higher level players, like Division I players, and they've already played on, you know, national teams or, you know, high level teams, or they have like a big social media following. They have the potential to make, you know, a lot of money. So just really preparing them for that.
Well, you have to think, you know, the NCAA has some serious competition with the G League offering six-figure salaries, and then you have
Yeah.
this other league. I forgot the name. For exclusively, I think, for high school players. Your tendency would be to think that they wouldn't mind increasing benefits or giving more student athletes access to benefits just to keep them in school.
Yeah. It's just scary because like, so shoe companies are just like so involved behind the scenes. So you take a school like Oregon or these other schools, and um, they're able to give a lot more money, you know, to players. Like one kid, Dior Johnson, he just turned down $1.2 million to go to Australia's NBL. And then he signed like the next day with Oregon. So it makes you think like, dang, what did they offer him to keep him here, you know?
But you know, they're not going to go into detail as to those things, right?
Yeah.
About how much they gave the kid and all that, right?
Yeah, no, never. But it's just like it. I feel like it's gonna make in basketball, in college basketball, at least, like the really blue bloods, like the high major schools, the top schools. It's gonna make the rich richer, and like the low majors and the lower budget schools, you know, just suffer a lot more. So
Is
I
that
think
a
you're gonna see a huge gap.
Mhm.
I feel like you're gonna see a huge gap for sure in college basketball pretty soon.
Do you see the NCAA looking into that? Is that a red flag?
Uh, I mean, it doesn't seem like too big of a concern if, you
Yeah.
know, they're kind of opening the gates right now. So, I mean, I think later on down the road, though, it'll be for sure something that's brought up.
All right, Brian.
All right. Taylor, I want to ask. I think you played with one of our locals here. I mean, Josh Munzon.
Hmm.
Could you share to us how he was as a player and as teammate to you?
Yeah, so Josh and I were on the FIBA 3x3 World Tour together. I mean, Josh is still one of my best friends to this day. He's just like a really a true competitor. It's hard to find too many people who really play the game and take pride on both ends of the floor like he does. He definitely loves to show out offensively, and he has a lot of skills offensively. And you know, his length, also being 6'4" at the guard position, you know, it helps when he plays, you know, other guards, especially in the Philippines when he has the height advantage. And he's just as quick as, you know, most guards.
Right. About going back to the draft, I mean, when you said had that injury, and considering the pandemic, and then there were a record number of applicants at that time, would you say it was sort of a blessing that you passed it up for now because of the conditions? Because there were a lot of players who were not signed.
I mean, uh, I would say it's a blessing just because I feel bad for like my friends like Josh who've just been, you know, stuck on lockdown in Manila. But yeah, I wouldn't have been worried at all about being signed. I mean, I for sure would have, you know, went top 5 in the draft. Um, but yeah, I just feel really bad because, Josh and them, they've been out there months away from their family, away from his newborn baby. And for me, that would just be terrible because like my son is 10 months. I think his daughter is a little bit younger, like a couple months younger. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being away from my son, for that long, and my wife. So
Right. Well, before I give it to Vince, I just like to dig into your academy. What's going on with your plans right now for as far as academy?
yeah, so right now, I think I said earlier, I've been coaching like 12, 14 hours a day. We've been having a lot of camps for young players, and then all of my college and pro players are back. So, early in the mornings and then late at night, I have those sessions. There's a few teams, a few agents that I'm working with to help get guys signed. And then my phone's been ringing off the hook because a few of my players, like one of my players last week, he got offered like 9 Division I scholarships. So my phone was like going crazy last week.
Are there any Filipinos that we should, Filipino Americans or any Filipino nationals in your academy right now?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit. I have a lot more younger ones that are really, really good, man. Like a few, I give them little nicknames like little Kiefer Ravenna.
Oh,
So they go home and look it up. And they're surprised because they don't know how good even Filipinos from the Philippines are. But so that makes it really cool. Just because of my travel ball program, we have probably like 12 Filipinos in our whole program. So like a couple kids are mixed, like half, and then a couple kids are full, whose parents are from the Philippines. So, I'll sprinkle in some little Tagalog, and, they're like, oh shoot, like, oh my God, you speak, you're really Filipino. So, it's fun.
all right, back to you, Vince. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
You mentioned you have your kids telling you they're getting offers left and right, here and there. Are you headed to the direction of being eventually an agent, Taylor, or do these kids have agents already?
Well, in the States, you're not allowed to have an agent until you declare that you're going pro. I've thought about, once my playing days are over, getting my FIBA license, just because I have helped so many players, sign contracts and, connect with those teams directly. But honestly, I've always just kind of done it to help. When I would go to like Indonesia or Thailand or some of these other countries, I would just always say, hey, like if you guys need players, I have a few friends. And then, I'd bring some guys over and they would do really well. And then other teams would see. And then it was just kind of like a snowball effect from there. But yeah, I definitely see that because my ultimate goal is to open up a gym and just have like a real, almost like how in Serbia and these countries they do it, where they just have like Spain, like they have these academies and they're just producing pros like year in and year out, from a young age.
Are we seeing as soon as all of this craziness ends, will we see a Statham Academy here in Manila?
I would love that. That would be cool. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe
Okay.
my playing days have to. I got to make the most of this body, though. I think I still got another good
Yeah.
8 or 10 years.
But hypothetically, Taylor, let's say you successfully applied to the draft, you got drafted. Are you going to request some flexibility in your contract, considering you're running an academy over stateside?
No, if I went in and made it to the PBA finally, I would just dive in, head first. And, I would be solely focused on 3 conferences and winning as many championships as I could, while I'm playing in the PBA. I've built up my academy to where I have enough coaches who can run it. And people, just good people that I trust. So, I feel like I could, help a little bit from where I'm at, but I have plenty of guys here who could cover it. Because me, like personally, like, especially when I'm in season, just like my competitive nature takes over and I just can't think about, anything else. But I would love to it's always been a dream of mine to go to the PBA, and then do like a tour in the off season of like provinces and throw camps for, kids who maybe don't have access to coaching or the resources like that.
Okay, recently Coach K announced that he was retiring after this coming season. We're seeing old school coaches retiring one by one. What are your views on this?
For me, it's kind of sad. I grew up watching Coach K and Duke and, Roy Williams and all these guys. But, they're stepping down, and there's a lot of really good young coaches coming up, in mid-major, high-major schools. And then a lot of their assistants are taking over. So, I mean, just like anything, eventually you have to move on, So, but I mean, for me, it's kind of sad because these are like guys I've grown up my whole life just, watching and learning from and idolizing. So.
Is that something in the pipeline down the road for you after 10, 11 years of playing?
No, no, no. I just want to help as many players as I can. I can't be tied to one school or one team.
Okay, Brian.
Right. Taylor, I'm sure you've heard about Kai Soto and the young players here in the Gigas program. Do you think he has the skills or the talent, enough the talent to make it to the NBA?
And I think I think players who are drafted into the NBA, it's strictly based off of potential. Here in the States, you'll have a freshman come in and he's been ranked since he was 13 years old, and he plays at a big Division I school. He has a decent season, like 10 points, 11 points a game, but he's been on an NBA draft board since he was a teenager, and oftentimes that's why guys are drafted. And I mean Kai Soto is 7'3". He has guard skills, he has post skills, he's getting stronger. He has international experience, and he's around the right people. So I think he definitely has like a good opportunity. I know like Lester Prosper, I'm like really close with, and they work out together all the time in Miami, and he has nothing but great things to say about him. And he's around a lot of NBA guys, so he definitely has the opportunity to, and I would love to see that. It was kind of unfortunate what happened with the whole G League situation. That for sure could have been handled better, but I think if you're chasing an NBA dream, you kind of have to put everything on hold, because you have the whole country behind you, and if you make it to the NBA, then you can always come back, and I feel like that would create so much more opportunity for the Philippines.
Aside from Guy, do you see any other locals here in the Philippines who could possibly make it to the NBA?
To the NBA, I mean, I haven't been to the Philippines in like 2 years, so there might be some young kids coming up, but I definitely think there's plenty of college players who could play in some really high level leagues overseas for sure. Just being around 30 and Juan and Kobe, they definitely have an opportunity to open up some gates, for these young players coming up, and get some eyes on the Philippines, and just the great local talent, not just Phil-Am talent, but local talent that's out there.
Vince?
Taylor, you teach a lot of kids. Has the pandemic had talking about mental health, has it had an effect on your kids mentally? And if yes, how have you been handling it?
Yeah, it definitely has. Especially us in America, like, last year was a very, very tough year. It was an election year. So, everything on the news was just trying to like draw out so much emotion from you and pull you to one side, whether you're Republican or Democrat. So there was just like a lot of hate going on, and people, were stuck inside and during the lockdown, and, kids don't really understand fully what's going on in the world. You know, they're just showing all these images, like especially on social media, like, you know, so, you know, when that happens, you know, a lot of kids are, you know, filled with anxiety, and, you know, they get depressed. And I definitely saw a shift in, you know, a lot of the players we coach. For the first time ever, we really had to take into account, like we used to have coaches meetings, um, and we would have to talk about, you know, how we'd have to teach each kid, just because, you know, some kids came back and, you know, it just seemed like they just had so much more anxiety, and they weren't the same happy-go-lucky kid. Um, you know, so a lot of it, like when things started opening up again, we just did our best to try to make basketball as fun as possible. Because like the program I have, we're, you know, a lot more serious, and we're really disciplined. So a lot of the times, if kids are feeling like these outside pressures, you know, especially at a young age, that can just be like a lot of stress on them. So, you know, mental health, especially after the pandemic, was, you know, something we really, really took serious, and, you know, are still trying to, you know, just find the best way to go about coaching each individual.
All right, back to you, Brian. Before we wrap up.
All right. I mean, maybe my last question for Taylor is, what best advice can you give to young kids who are aspiring to be good ballers like you and the rest of the ones we see right now?
Two things I think are like the most important. Actually, I mean, there's a lot of things important, but I think like the two things that are the most important are just outworking everybody. And it sounds very vague, but I feel like there's a lot that goes into it. Like, you have to be the hardest worker on the court. You have to be the hardest worker in your city, in your state, in your province, in your country. Um, you know, be the hardest worker in the weight room, be the hardest worker on the track, like away from basketball. You know, just building your body, how you take care of your body, your sleep, the way you eat. And then I think the second thing is just like how disciplined you are, you know, how disciplined you are. And your character really kind of dictate your future. And I think that's very evident in basketball. If you watch players from a young age all the way up, like there's some players who are really good and people get all excited about, and they never pan out, especially here in America. Like kids will be 6'5" in 8th grade and dunking the basketball, you know, and then by the time college comes around, you know, they're not even in college or, you know, playing basketball, because at that young age, they were given everything, and then they never had to work hard for anything. So they develop these bad habits. And I think really good players, even ones who, you know, have the hype early, they're sponges, and they want to learn and listen, you know, from everybody around them that they can. And they just, you know, they're just great people. You know, they're respectful. They listen, they work hard, and, you know, it's no surprise when guys, you know, years on down the line end up becoming really successful college or pro players.
All right. Thank you, Taylor. Back to Vince.
All right, Taylor. Before we have you say your final words, let's have a picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. On three. 1, 2, 3. There you go.
All right,
Awesome.
Taylor. Your final words for our viewers.
My final words for your viewers: I appreciate, first of all, you guys having me. I appreciate, you know, all the fans that I have in the Philippines, you know, who still to this day, even, you know, 2 years later, are still messaging me and telling me how much they want me to come back, and still, you know, very involved in my life and keeping up with, you know, with what's going on with me. And, you know, I pray that everything in the Philippines, especially with COVID, you know, gets figured out, you know, very soon, and things get back to normal for you guys. And, you know, I'll be praying for you guys. And yeah, man, I'm excited to, you know, see the PBA start and see what's going to happen with 3x3 and MPBL and, you know, all these great leagues that you guys have. You know, I even want to see some Liga La Bus on my Facebook. And, you know, I just love basketball, and I I love the Philippines, man, and I really embrace the culture, and I feel like, you know, going there after college really helped shape my life and, you know, helped me shape, you know, the person I am today. So, you know, I'm very grateful, and I really just want to see everything get back to normal there.
On that note, thank you, Taylor, for your time. We know you're busy with your academy, cultivating young basketball minds. So we thank you for your time. We're grateful for your time. And that ends another episode of Sports for All. Next weekend, watch out for a new episode with new guests and interesting and fun conversation. Good night, everyone. So long.
All right. Thank you, Taylor.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Taylor.